Your group chat has 43 unread messages and 0 decisions. Someone asked where to eat on Friday. 6 people reacted with laughing emojis. Nobody answered the question. You saw it happen. You did nothing. You are not lazy. You are not rude. You are running an equation your brain solved before you even opened the app. Here is the strange part. If you were the only person in that chat, you would have answered in 10 seconds. Add 42 other people, and your brain quietly downgrades the importance of your own response. The math changes. Your effort changes with it. This is not a personality flaw. It is a documented behavior with a name, a birth date, and a rope. In 1913, a French agricultural engineer named Max Ringelmann ran an experiment that had nothing to do with psychology on paper. He was studying farm efficiency. He asked men to pull on a rope, alone first, then in groups, and he measured the force on a gauge behind them. Logic said more people should mean more total pull. The gauge disagreed. One person pulling alone generated a certain amount of force. Put 2 people on the rope, and the total force was less than double. Put 8 people on the rope, and each individual was pulling at roughly half the intensity they showed alone. The group got bigger, the effort per person got smaller. Ringelmann had accidentally discovered that groups don't add effort. They dilute it. For decades, people assumed this was about coordination. Maybe 8 people just can't time their pulls together as well as 2. That was the polite explanation, and it lasted until 1979, when researchers Bibb Latané, Kipling Williams, and Stephen Harkins decided to remove coordination from the equation entirely. They blindfolded participants, put headphones on them, and told them to shout or clap as loud as they could, sometimes alone, sometimes believing 5 other people were shouting with them through the headphones. There was no actual coordination required. You just make noise. But when participants believed others were shouting too, their own individual effort dropped by more than 30%. Nobody was mistiming anything. They were just trying less. Latané named this social loafing, and it turned out to have nothing to do with logistics and everything to do with a quiet internal calculation. If my contribution is invisible, why maximize it? Think about that sentence again. If my contribution is invisible, why maximize it? Your brain is not measuring the task. It is measuring whether anyone can trace the outcome back to you specifically. That's why you didn't answer the restaurant question. Not because you're apathetic, but because in a chat of 43 people, your silence is statistically anonymous. Nobody will remember that you specifically didn't answer. But if it were a text from one friend, direct, no witnesses, no crowd to hide the gap, you would have replied immediately, because the responsibility would have had your name on it and nowhere else to go. Here's a question worth sitting with for a moment. If more people should mean more total effort, why does human behavior do the opposite? Hold that. We'll come back to it. First, the deeper mechanism. Social loafing isn't really about laziness. It's about what researchers call diffusion of responsibility. The sense that when a task is shared, so is the blame for failing it, which means each individual's share of that blame gets smaller as the group gets bigger. Your brain isn't doing less work. It's doing a very fast, very quiet risk assessment and concluding that the personal cost of underperforming has dropped because there are now 42 other people who could theoretically be the one who dropped the ball. This is the same mechanism behind bystander effect research, where people are less likely to help someone in distress the more witnesses are present, because each witness assumes someone else will step in. Social loafing is the everyday, low-stakes cousin of that same wiring. It's not about ignoring an emergency. It's about ignoring a group project, a shared chore list, a team assignment where 4 names are attached but one person somehow ends up doing 60% of the slides. Researchers have since replicated this effect across dozens of contexts that have nothing to do with rope or shouting. Students grading group essays contribute less as team size grows. Employees brainstorming in groups generate fewer ideas per person than the same number of employees brainstorming alone and pooling results afterward. Even charitable donation drives see per-person contributions shrink as the number of listed co-organizers grows, because donors unconsciously assume someone else on that long list of names has already covered the gap. The rope was never really about rope. It was a stand-in for any situation where effort can be pooled and blame can be spread thin enough to feel like it belongs to no one in particular. You've felt this from both sides. You've been the person who quietly did less because you knew you'd blend into the group total. And you've been the person doing the actual work while 3 names sat above yours on a shared document, contributing nothing, protected by the exact same math you used against someone else once. Here's the twist, and it's the part that reframes everything you just accepted as obvious. You would assume the fix is simple. Make groups smaller, and effort goes back up. Sometimes that's true, but Latané's later research found something stranger. What actually restores full effort isn't a smaller group, it's identifiability. The moment individual contributions become visible and traceable, even in a massive group, loafing drops close to 0. A 100-person group where everyone's individual output is tracked and displayed produces more effort per person than a 4-person group where contributions are anonymous and pooled. Size was never the real variable. Visibility was. This is exactly why companies quietly restructured how they measure you. Call centers display individual call counts on shared dashboards, not because managers enjoy surveillance, but because Latané's research proved that visible individual metrics single-handedly cancels social loafing, even in huge teams. Fitness apps show your name on a leaderboard instead of a group total for the same reason. Group chats with read receipts exist for the same reason, whether the developers who built them ever read a psychology paper or not. Somewhere, an institution learned that the fastest way to extract maximum effort from a crowd is to make the crowd feel like it's actually a collection of individually watched people. You have felt this too. You work harder in a video call when your camera is on than when it's off. You clean the shared kitchen more thoroughly when your roommate is standing there than when you're the only one who'll ever know you skipped a corner. None of this is about honesty or dishonesty. It's the same rope, the same gauge, the same drop in force the moment your individual pull becomes untraceable. So go back to the group chat. 43 people, 1 unanswered question. It wasn't apathy. It was a 110-year-old finding about rope, replaying itself on a phone screen in a context Ringelmann could never have imagined and would probably recognize instantly anyway. There's another layer to this that most people never notice because it hides inside something that feels like the opposite of laziness: busyness. You can be exhausted at the end of a group project and still have loafed. Social loafing doesn't always look like doing nothing. Sometimes it looks like doing the easy 30% very enthusiastically, so that your visible activity covers for the invisible 70% nobody assigns specifically to you. You attend every meeting. You react to every message. You look engaged. Engagement is cheap. Ringelmann's rope didn't measure how committed the men looked. It measured force on a gauge. Your group chat has no gauge, so your brain substitutes something else entirely: the appearance of involvement. Because appearance is what gets noticed in a crowd, and force is not. This is where the research gets uncomfortable, because it stops being about other people and starts being about you specifically, right now, reading this. Think of the last group project where you contributed less than an equal share. You probably didn't experience it as choosing to loaf. You experienced it as being busy, as trusting your teammates, as assuming someone more capable would handle the hard part. Every justification felt reasonable in the moment. That is exactly what the research predicts. Social loafing doesn't feel like laziness from the inside. It feels like a series of small, defensible decisions that all happen to reduce your personal exposure to blame. Now the institutional layer, because this pattern didn't stay in a psychology lab. Once organizations understood that anonymity kills effort and visibility restores it, they stopped leaving group performance to chance. Sales floors post individual numbers on shared screens. Rideshare apps rate you as a driver and a passenger, individually, permanently, attached to your name. Open-plan offices were partly sold as collaboration spaces, but they also happened to make every individual's presence and absence instantly visible to everyone walking past. None of this requires malice from the people who designed these systems. It only requires someone, somewhere, understanding one basic fact from a 1913 rope experiment. The moment a group can hide your specific contribution gets smaller. And the moment it can't, it doesn't. You can test this on yourself without waiting for anyone to design a system around you. Notice which tasks you do fully and which ones you quietly let shrink. The pattern will almost always trace back to the same variable Latine isolated in 1979. Not how hard the task is, not how many people are involved, just whether your name is attached clearly enough that the outcome could be traced back to you and only you. So go back to the group chat. 43 people, one unanswered question. It wasn't apathy. It was a 110-year-old finding about rope replaying itself on a phone screen in a context Ringelmann could never have imagined and would probably recognize instantly anyway. Your effort was never really about the task in front of you. It was about whether anyone could trace the outcome back to you specifically. That is the quiet variable running underneath every group project you've half finished, every chat you've left unread, every meeting where you nodded along without saying the thing you actually thought. And now that you know the variable, you can't unsee it. The next time you feel the pull to stay quiet in a crowd, ask yourself the only question that actually matters. Is this silence about the group in front of you? Or is it about the simple, comfortable fact that no one is watching your specific rope?